Thanks to everyone for welcoming me here today. I'm Kohenet Keshira haLev Fife. I use the she and they series pronouns. I'm coming to you from the land of the Osage and Haudenosaunee people, also called Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And I want to offer gratitude to the indigenous tenders of this land, to the elements and the seasons ever moving and reminding us that all changes, and to my bright and benevolent ancestors, all of those who engaged in spiritual practice in so many ways across time so that I could be here today. As Mark shared, I'm guiding this sit today in honor of my beloved dad. His first yard site was on the 3rd of Elul, which was last Sunday. And today is his, his Gregorian yard site. I was reflecting this morning that at this time last year, I was sitting at my dining table with my partner and my sister, and we were calling all of our nearest and dearest to share the news. And it's amazing how much can change in a year and how some things stay the same. Just an hour before my dad died, I knew he could hear me. And so I said to him, "Daddy, I promise you, I'm going to miss you every day, and I'm going to love you forever." And he would be proud because I've done an excellent job this year. I haven't missed a single day. So I'm grateful for the opportunity to miss him together with you all here in Witness and to share a little bit. There are so many things that I could teach on today, but here's what came to me. Pirkei Avot, sometimes translated as ethics of our fathers or chapters of our fathers, or I prefer wisdom of our sages, is a book that we can reach to for small tidbits that teach us a lot about the world and how we inhabit it. And though my dad was not a sage, he was an elder, and he too had a lot of wisdom that he shared. He was an older dad. And so I thought I might share a piece of wisdom that came from my dad as it relates to this season. I grew up at Tree of Life. Every year on the high holidays, I put on uncomfortable tights and a new suit, and I went to high holiday services, and I sat quietly. The only thing I did during services other than look at the book was to braid and knot my dad's tallis. When I was old enough to drive, my dad said to me, "You'll get there when you get there." And he said, "You don't have to go on both days of Rosh Hashanah anymore, but you can't go to school and you can't hang out publicly if you're not coming to shul." I intrinsically knew that the high holidays were not days for hanging out at a coffee shop or roaming the streets of Squirrel Hill like most other days, but I didn't really understand why I wasn't allowed to go to school, especially since my dad emphasized the value of education so much. So I asked him, "Well, if I'm not going to come to shul on the second day, why can't I go to school?" And here's what he said. My father was an attorney. And he said, "Well, let's say that I come to shul for the first day and I schedule a court appearance on the second day. And at the same time, another Jewish lawyer is called into court and he objects on the basis that it's Rosh Hashanah. The judge might say to him, 'Well, Sandy Gross is coming into court. Why can't you?'" This lesson has stuck with me for many, many years because it contrasted so much with the value that my dad had for independence and for doing things his way. This has come to be one of the many things that I appreciated both about my dad and about Jewish tradition. It balances the idea of rugged individualism, this American value that tells us to do us, do what works for us, chart our own course, find our own way by ourselves, and earn the badge of pride for doing so. It counterbalances that with the idea that community matters, that our actions impact one another, that we are responsible for each other, even if we don't know it. For me, that relates directly to this season. For those who have been reading along with us at home, This is Real, and You Are Completely Unprepared by Rabbi Alan Liu. He writes about this idea of being alone together. This is a season of cheshbon hanefesh, when we take an accounting of our soul. And at the same time, if we show up for slichot, or for meditation with IJS, or for services in our local community, we can be reminded that this cheshbon hanefesh, while individual, can be done as part of a web of connection with loving accountability and support. This season also brings to us a balance of conversations about forgiveness and our own readiness, our own healing. How much are we obligated to forgive or to ask forgiveness and be part of the web? How much do we get to say, I'm still not over this, but I'm not angry at you. I'm just not ready to fully forgive. How much do we get to hold for ourselves a boundary, and how much do we belong to one another? We also get to create a communal space to acknowledge where we've missed the mark, while hopefully reflecting on our own role and responsibility to intervene and to bring healing, even if we weren't the ones specifically who missed the mark. We could argue that this month is a boot camp for how to live well, building our own awareness and consciousness of where we might have gone away from center, where we've strayed, where we've missed the mark, where we've not been our best selves. We cultivate this practice so that we don't get too far away from ourselves before we make teshuvah and return. So with that, I want to invite us into practice, because when we sit in practice and observe our minds doing what our minds do, and then we gently redirect them back to our point of focus, this is the microcosm of how we live. And so we get to practice in our own small way, with loving attention, no matter how many times our mind wanders. We just escort it back to our point of focus. Nothing's wrong with us. We're still lovable. We're just gently helping ourselves come back to center and remembering what it feels like to be there. So if it feels comfortable to you to close your eyes, feel welcome. If it's more accessible to soften your gaze, great. Notice how your body feels right now. Is some part of your body vying for your attention? Would your shoulders like to settle down a little more? Would your belly like to be free? Do you like to recline or stretch your legs or roll your head, stretch your neck? Whatever might bring a little more comfort, please give that to yourself now. And choose a focus point. If it works for you to connect with the breath, that's great. If focusing on your breath brings distress or discomfort, you might choose a body part to observe its sensation. It could be the tip of your nose or one of your fingers. You might put your fingers, a couple of fingers on your wrist or at your neck to observe your pulse. And if it brings discomfort to notice what's going on in your body, you might choose to fix your gaze externally. Whatever you choose, settle in with your focus point. And I'll invite you now to just notice your body and where it's making connection with your chair or your bed or your sofa or your floor. Feel that contact the way that it's holding you up and supporting you, the way that the ground beneath you is holding you, perhaps as a proxy for the earth below, with gravity keeping us on the planet. Notice now the sensation on your skin, where your clothes are touching your body, where the air is caressing your body. What is the temperature of the air? Is it stagnant or is it moving? Notice in your body, where is there ease or neutrality? Simply being. You might note that place of positive resource, which can be an anchor in your day. And if there are places that feel constricted or tense, you might place a hand on them or send some breath to loosen those knots. Now let's come to the focal point. That's the breath. Just notice the sensation of air coming into the nostrils, temperature, if there's any smell associated with it. Your focal point is a part of the body. Notice, how does that body part feel from the inside and from the outside? If you're focused externally, notice the sensation in the mind as you focus. Your attention is being drawn elsewhere. And as thoughts are flowing through the mind, just let them roll by. Acknowledge them and let them keep moving. No need for them to stop. Just see a steady stream. If you notice sensations in the body, nothing to fix. You might notice tickle of the air, or maybe a hair, or a little bit of tingle in your feet. There's discomfort or pain, of course, adjust accordingly. It's sensation we can just notice and then come back to our focal point. As you're focusing on this point, feel the parameters of your being. Your skin, which holds you together and creates a beautiful barrier from everything external. Part of what makes you an individual. You might plant a seed from this place of focused awareness. What is the cheshbon hanefesh that I need to do in the coming days and weeks? Who might I need to approach in teshuvah? Where am I holding on that I might be ready to let go? Where am I holding on that I'm not yet ready to let go? Or what do I need to forgive myself? What do I need to loosen my grip? What would I need to know or to hear or to feel? If you notice that the pace of your thoughts is increasing, just let them keep coming. And you might notice that your body is responding to some of the questions or thoughts. If you feel tension or unsettledness, or discomfort, you might send some breath or place a hand on that part to bring some comfort. Just return to the focal point. No need to fix, nothing to change. Continue to find settledness in that place. And elsewhere in the garden of your mind, you might plant some seeds for the communal web. Considering what is my role in helping my community to be more whole, to create a more loving and just world, perhaps starting at home, in my workplace, my home place, my community. What gifts could I bring that might bring more alignment and connection? Your mind is beginning to race with competing thoughts of what to do first, or perhaps with the objection, why should I? Just notice what's arising and let it flow by. Any thought that needs attention will return later in its right time. No need to grasp for it now. Notice the body sensation. What arises when you consider being in communal space, making confession or acknowledgement of where we've missed the mark. Notice the sensation here and come back to the focal point. And what sensation arises when you consider being in communal space, acknowledging or declaring all the ways we've done wonderfully this year? When you consider that you have been a part of creating beauty and connection and wonder and healing. Notice the sensation in the body. Is there relief? Is there doubt? Resistance? Celebration? For better, for worse, let this too go by. Allow yourself to be with your focal point. Nothing to change, nothing to do. Simply allowing ourselves to be. Each time we sit this way, we deepen the grooves of behavior and thought pattern. How powerful to have agency over our own experience, and to do so within a web of connection. But the things that are hard don't have to be done alone. And things that are exciting and generative, surely we don't want to do them alone. Come back to the focal point. Feel yourself in your individuality. Some moments may feel like isolation. Other moments like blessed solitude. And even in the moments where we're completely unaware of how or why each action we take has an impact. And we pray that it's impact that merits the good. Come back to the focal point. Notice where the mind has gone. Notice the sensations in your body. How they differ from even just a few minutes ago. See if you can identify a place of positive resource in the body. Place that you can return to anytime. Let's just be here for one more moment together, alone. And as you feel ready to emerge, you might gently open your eyes. Come back to your screen. Take in the others who are here with us alone together. May bless us that as we continue to move through this season, we find right balance of our own personal practice in deepening, connecting, returning, with the outward reaching to the web of connection that holds us all, those we know and those we'll never know. And that we return to alignment so that we can bring ever more beauty, more connection, more healing, more justice, more peace, and more love to each other, to ourselves, and to the planet. In just a moment, we're going to engage in the Elul practice of the shofar blast. I lead a community here in Pittsburgh called Keshira, Pittsburgh, and for years my dad was our bal koreh.
Oh.
And he practiced Tikiya. So I'm calling him to mind now. I know he loved hearing the shofar, and he would have been so delighted to be here with all of us hearing it together today. So blessing you deeper into this month of Elul, and I hope that we get to be together again really soon.
Jen, you need to unmute.
Okay, I did all the settings you told me.
Okay, we'll have to keep working at it. I am going to friends, I'm gonna invite us just to sit, and I will play the sounds of the shofar. So let's just sit and take in those sounds. And friends, we end our sit, seal our practice today as we do each day, offering those of you who are in mourning or observing a yard site, or if it's your custom to join in the Kaddish, to do so, and to put the name or names of those who are honoring in the chat box now or after we recite the Kaddish. And if you're not reciting Kaddish, if you would please stay present for those who are and offer your support and compassion. And if you're reciting Kaddish, I invite you to join me by rising in body or in spirit to recite the words together, and you can unmute at this time. Yitgadal, Dashamerabah, Amen. Friends, thanks so much for joining us today. And of course, thanks to our teacher for today, Kohenet Keshira haLev Fife, for leading us so beautifully and in loving memory of your dad. So beautiful and such a wonderful tribute to him, Keshira. Thank you so much. Thanks for lifting up his Torah today for all of us. May his soul shine brightly for you. And thanks to Jordan Pollock for holding our space. And apologies to Jan Mahler. Jan, we missed the opportunity to do the sound check before, but we will get this right. This is the season of tshuva, and we will get it right. So stay tuned for that. Friends, as always, you're invited to stay on for conversation with our teacher for today, Keshira haLev Fife. And if you're leaving us now, we hope you'll join us tomorrow. Rebecca Schisler will lead us tomorrow, and Rabbi Sam Feinsmith on Friday to sit into Shabbat. So we hope you'll join us for both of those, or if not, sometime soon. And we hope you stay safe and well otherwise. And if you're staying on, of course, please share if you'd like share if you'd like any reflections on your experience with the sit today, or questions for Kohenet Keshira, and I'll do my best to relay those as well. If it's a question, please preface it by writing question in all caps. It makes it easier for me to keep an eye on that. I'll kick it up, but I'm going to keep an eye on the chat, because I know yesterday I did not get to let's get some of those in the chat. And Sharon, I see your question. We'll get to that in a second, but I just want to begin by underlining, the essence of your teaching today, Keshira. That idea of, that's in the Alan Lu book of being alone together, which is like we do that every day basically here. We're each, for the most part, alone in our own spaces, but we're alone together. So we're quite experienced with that. But it also made me think about, you said you really appreciated that about our tradition, the kind of, in American terms, the rugged individualism, but also the communitarianism, which in American culture, we might say gets a lot of short shrift, like a lot of emphasis on the other, not so much on the communal responsibility part. So that might be a contribution. But I'm also thinking about, it's another aspect of that is this paradoxical holding of both particularity and universality at the same time, right? And also that the universal is in the particular, and the particular is part of the universal. So I don't know if you want to elaborate on that at all, but you mentioned that this is a powerful concept for you. So I just want to see if you want to say a little bit more about that.
Sure. What's coming to me is just gratitude for being able to hold the complexity of things, multiple things at once, and to remember that they're all connected. That we might feel something in the particular, and there's no real boundary between the particular and the universal. We spoke about this recently when it came to grief, that sometimes we begin to cry about one thing, and before we know it, we're crying about the grief of the world. And what a gift it is to have a season that's beset for us that says, it's okay, grieve now. Grieve now. It won't feel like this forever. But we can let ourselves go there and we can come back. And as we do that, we begin to become more fluent at moving between languages and the connection between the particular and the universal.
Mm-hmm. I was thinking about the other thing that came up when you were saying that. I was thinking, when you're talking about when you were invoking that sense of being in prayer together as a community, I was thinking about like the colloquialism, of the day, like when we do something that's we miss the mark, we say, my bad, right? And when we do the communal confessions on Yom Kippur, we're basically saying our bad, right? Right? It's our bad. Don't know if I love that phrase either, but for another time. Okay, let's get to some of these questions. So one question from Sharon is, what do we do when someone won't forgive us? Okay, so, maybe that goes to that question about the whole, where we're all affected by this when there is, a rupture in some way, and there's like, whoever it might be on to try to heal the rupture or not, isn't doing that. Like, what's your take on that? So when someone won't forgive us.
Well, I think when that happens, we first have to interrogate, why do we feel entitled to be forgiven? Or what hook is still in us that's yearning for forgiveness? What do we want to have be another way? And what part of it is ours to do? Sometimes the other person can say, yeah, no problem, it's fine. And the hook is still in there. We know that it wasn't fine, and that there's some work to do to make sure that that kind of harm doesn't happen again. We spoke in the young adult group about this at length, this idea of saying to someone, I'm not angry at you, and I'm not ready. There's still a part of me that is hurt or wounded that needs to heal. I'm not sure I'm ready to forgive, but I can move on. We can still be in places together. We can still be in relationship, and it may never go back to being how it was before. And that can be hard. I think that can be hard to receive. And it invites us to slow down and be with what feels hard to receive, and how can I make enough peace within myself to move on.
That's actually, I think it's really powerful that you offer that, as rather than this kind of the either or question of either, there's forgiveness or there isn't forgiveness. And you're suggesting like something that's, neither of those, right? But it's different. It's a movement. It's, representation of some healing, which relates to Nancy's question about, can the two emotions of anger and forgiveness forgiveness is an emotion. Can anger and forgiveness coexist in that the anger is still processing, or as what you were just putting it, the hurt is still wounded, right? The wound is still healing, but the will and desire to forgive is also strong.
Well, anger is usually a cover story for something else. And if we can get underneath the anger, we might find that there's resentment there, which is usually connected to a sense of injustice, a feeling unappreciated, unacknowledged, unseen, unconsidered. And I would say that to offer true forgiveness, I will go with the definition that's most prominently in my mind from Oprah, but no doubt many, many others have said that forgiveness is letting go of the possibility of a different past.
Mm.
Right? It's a grand exercise in acceptance.
Mm.
And sometimes I can let go of the reality that the past won't be different, but the injustice is still lodged in me somewhere. And then my work to do is to figure out, what do I need? And it might be something from the other person, and it might not be. It might be that I need the other person to acknowledge what happened, or to say something particular, or to prove that they're doing differently. And it might be that the person is just emblematic of a larger system that I may never live long enough to let go of anger about, and that I could soften to the other person because it's not entirely theirs to hold.
What about forgiveness for one's own sake, as opposed to focusing on the other?
Yes, we have this, I don't know who said this, but there's an idea that when you hold a grudge against someone, the person's living rent-free in your head.
Right. Or it's like drinking poison. It's like drinking.
That's right. That's right. And chances are we're carrying more than the other person. Sometimes the other person is blissfully unaware that there's a problem at all. We can't know without other people communicating with us, and vice versa. So sometimes the hard conversation is to say to someone, I've been carrying this thing for a long while, and it might seem small, but it's creating a knot in the connection line between us. Can we talk about it? And it may come as a complete surprise to the other person. And we know we learn a lot about people by how they respond to us. My mother says, when someone shows you who they are, believe them. Right? So we have the opportunity to bring something up with compassion, with loving kindness. For those who are practitioners of Musar, this connects deeply to the way that anger can be hot or cold, and what temperature we bring ourselves to before connecting with the other person. So much more strength and relationship comes from untying those knots together, rather than just snipping the cord and walking away.
There's a question also from Susan. It's interesting. There's a lot of questions about forgiveness. So clearly, this is on people's minds. Question about forgiveness if someone is unaware of having caused harm. I'm taking that to mean like someone has caused us harm, and they're unaware of it. I mean, my first take on that is just let them know you hurt me, right? And then see what happens after that, right? Bring it to awareness. But I don't know. What do you think about that?
I agree. We have to let them know. And for some of us, that's a lot harder. Many of us are socialized to not make waves, to not create discomfort, or to remove discomfort whenever we get a sense that it might be present. If you're a person who's internalized that, it might be a bridge too far to confront another person and bring something up. Maybe this year it's a journaling exercise, or it's writing a letter that never gets sent, or saying it out loud to another person just to give voice to the way that you've been harmed. If you don't have yet the omets lev, the strength of heart or courage to enter into that conversation directly.
Yeah. I'm thinking also one of the things I really also do appreciate about our tradition is that there were different terms for forgiveness. One is mechila. I mean, they all come up during the high holidays. Mechila, which is, I think, the kind of forgiveness that we're talking about, where like I'm apologizing for something, or I want an apology for somebody, so I can offer them mechila for that. But there's also slicha, which is a little bit less connected to whether there's an apology or not, which has to do with that kind of letting go of toxic energy. And then there's kapara, atonement, which is kind of weirdly what God offers, really, what divine offers us. And for me, it's helpful to kind of maybe toggle among those in some ways. Like if, if forgiveness is not available, or if I'm not ready to forgive, or others are not ready to forgive me in the Mechila realm, then there are these other realms too that might help us leach out some of the toxic, unhelpful, unwholesome, unholy energy that's getting in the way for us of of the transformation that we need.
Yes, I think the apology and forgiveness between people is ideally the khatima, the seal after some wise action has been taken, right? That we are working actively towards not causing that harm again. And it's in the world of Asiya. It's on the earth plane. The word atonement, I rather prefer to think of as at-one-ment. And that when I pray for atonement, really what I'm praying for is that the divine helps me to reintegrate into oneness, so that there aren't little scattered parts of myself that feel disconnected, either because of what I'm holding, grudges that I'm holding, hard feelings that I'm holding, apologies that I'm still carrying around that I should just give to the person that they belong to. That this atonement or at-one-ment is an act of bringing ourselves back to ourselves, so that we start anew as we move into the next spiral of time.
Well, as always, really beautiful teaching and practice today. Keshira, haLev, Fife. Much gratitude to you, to your dad, and for the teaching from his life that flowed through you today. May he always be a blessing for you, Keshira. And thanks so much to Jordan for holding our space, and Jan for showing up, and we will get it right on the shofar. And especially to all of you, still 160 souls strong here live, which is really remarkable. See a lot of questions, a lot of pain, a lot of suffering in the chat. And we send you blessings for ease as we move into these last few weeks of this year, for release from some of that pain and that suffering, and for a new openness to change and fresh start and renewal in 5784. All right, everyone.
Thanks to you, Frank. Thank you for hosting us so beautifully.
A pleasure always. Okay. Everyone, hope to see you tomorrow to sit with Rebecca, and many blessings, everyone.